So with an off-season full of drama, the baseball writers made it worse. Did the writers get it right? Find out next on Down the Right Field Line. So after the baseball winter meetings, baseball had a few moves here and there, but nothing major. So there's really nothing to look forward to until the Hall of Fame vote, where the baseball writers have a chance to elect the cream of the crop to the Hall of Fame, and no one got voted in, which I think is bogus. Now, it's obvious that these players have been stained or tainted with steroid allegations or facts or what have you. But you can't have the approach of, well, there's suspicion here and we think this, so nobody gets in. We talk about guys like a Biggio or a Jack Morris where, you know, they're almost there. I believe Biggio was at 68% and Jack Morris was a little bit south of that. And, you know, they should be getting in soon, I believe.
Yeah, in Biggio's case, he was only 39 votes off. And Biggio should have been, in my perspective, should have been elected into the Hall of Fame. I think this whole ballot was everybody was not voting in their right minds. Now, we're going to talk about the steroid issue here in a little bit, but let's just focus on Biggio right now. This guy has 3,000 hits. You know, everybody talks about if you get 3,000 hits, you're in the Hall of Fame. I definitely think Biggio got the short end of the stick because all the steroid people in this ballot. And Jack Morris, his thing was in the playoffs that he would always come through. But Biggio, I think no doubt about it, should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I agree with you there, and I'm going to take it a step further and say, you know, guys on the fringe, like we were saying, should be getting in as well. I mean, guys like Jeff Bagwell and Mike Piazza, I mean, to my knowledge, I don't remember a story coming out of these guys. It's just been by the eye test on those two. So why they are not in the Hall of Fame or did not get voted in, Mike Piazza, I believe, is the best offensive catcher in Major League Baseball. I believe has the record for most home runs by a catcher. So how do you leave him off of the Hall of Fame election? Man, Mike, it's really tough not to see Mike Piazza voted in along with Biggio and Bagwell and whoever, and I guess Brock Raines, Tim Raines, and Jack Morris.
Yeah, you know, in Piazza's case, it's one of those cases where catchers don't get elected into the Hall of Fame that often. As a matter of fact, I was looking through the numbers, and a lot of the catchers that got in were because of their defensive skills. And there's some catchers out there with ridiculous home run numbers. Like, you're talking about, like, 20 home runs in their career. But these guys get elected because of their defensive skills. So you start looking, and that puts a little bit of perspective. And you put Mike Piazza's name in there, you're like, this is the best hitting catcher of all time. You think first ballot Hall of Famer. But just like in Biggio's case, because of the ballot, if you bring this into last year's ballot, this might be a different story. But because of the ballot so tainted with the Bonds, with the Clemens, and it's just guilty by association. You know, Piazza and Bagwell, you know, they were big guys, and you think a big guy took steroids. Some people are just big. Just Frank Thomas is going to be, I believe, elected to the Hall of Fame next year. Hopefully there isn't any steroids speculation with this guy. This guy's always been big.
It's a witch hunt. You can't do one of these, yeah, I think he did it, so he's not going to get in. If there's no evidence, there's no fact, then vote him in. Elect him. A lot of these writers also are not voting him in. These guys on, I guess giving him a slap on the wrist the first year so that they can feel it, I guess, and then voting him in next year. I think that's ridiculous. Some of these guys just have a personal problem with a Bonds or Clemens and don't vote him in the first year just because of the issue. Just vote him in. I don't understand. I understand that
that's a very good point you made there, Rafi. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's a very good point because think about it. The guys who are voting are sports writers.
Right.
And obviously, Bonds didn't have a good relationship with the media.
Right. So, I mean, you begin to wonder, well, why are they not voting for these people? You're going to tell me that, you know, you spent years covering these guys, you know what they've done, you know what they haven't done, more or less, because you're a writer, you're a journalist, you investigate. That's your job. So to me, it's hard to believe that they have no idea what's going on. I'm frustrated because, yes, we do want to keep this game clean, but at the time there was no testing in place. So why are you going to penalize somebody who technically didn't do anything wrong?
Well, I see your point there, Raph, but you know, it's one of those things, it needs to get addressed. You need to have Bud Selig come out and talk about it, because, you know, just giving the writers just free for all and just saying, well, they'll make the decision eventually, that's not going to work. You know, they had a special on TV and you had half of the room agreeing that steroid users shouldn't get elected into Hall of Fame, and the other half disagreeing. And both sides had very strong views. You know, it's one of those polar opposite type issues that one side really agrees with it heavily, the other side doesn't. And if you don't get somebody up there to talk about it, it's always going to be like that, and it's going to be like this every single year. So you need somebody to address it. Now, as far as whether I think they should be elected to the Hall of Fame, I don't. You're talking about game-changing type numbers. Like, in Bond's case, he was going to make the Hall of Fame anyways. But you also have to say, well, if you put him into the Hall of Fame, those numbers, that 700 home runs, that's going to be on his plaque. Now you're solidifying that record and saying that is a legitimate record, which I still believe it's not.
Whether or not it is a tainted record, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. Right now, there's no asterisk on it. So, as of now, he is the home run leader. So acknowledge it. They're doing something about it, and I commend them for it, but you can't change the past. What's done is done. Okay? And that's how I feel about it.
It's definitely a touchy subject. I mean, you know, I agree with some of your points. You know, a lot of other people have been, you know, talking online about, you know, it's the era that they played in. And if that's the era they played in, then the numbers should be allowed. You talk about Mark McGwire. He was a great home run hitter, but he would have never gone over 60 home runs without steroids.
Same with Sammy Sosa. He's not, in my opinion, he's not a Hall of Famer. I didn't see anything special out of Sammy Sosa to merit a Hall of Fame. You take the home runs away from Sammy, he's not a Hall of Famer. And even with the home runs, in my opinion, he's not a Hall of Famer.
But let me ask you a question. Somebody who's convicted of a crime off the field, does that, you know, should that play a part in the Hall of Fame vote?
Well, it's part of the character clause, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, you have guys who weren't exactly model citizens in Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth. I mean, they had off-the-field antics. And you have other players that had cocaine and drug abuse issues. It's a slippery slope, but are you hurting anybody by taking steroids? You're hurting yourself, but you're not really hurting anybody.
I agree with you. Slippery slope. But you know, the whole point, I guess, that I'm coming across is it needs to get addressed. That's the prestige of the Hall of Fame. You know, people, the writers understand it, and that's why baseball gave that right to the writers, because they're the ones that love the game the most. If you give it to the fans, they're always going to vote for somebody on their own team. But you give it to sports writers, they're the people that are romantic, I guess you can say, about the sport. So I think it is cool that they still have control, but it needs to get addressed.
Definitely, and all I can say is thank you, Jose Canseco. But you guys decide what you think, whether or not these guys should be in the Hall of Fame. For that, you can send us a tweet at Down the RF Line on Twitter or on Facebook on our Down the Right Field Line page. From all of us here Down the Right Field Line, we'll see you next time, so take care. Later.